Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to cover section B today of chapter 15, which is the circulatory system. This is one of my favorite systems. The heart is an incredible organ, and it's kind of important. So let's find out how it works. Okay. And the circulatory system is more than just the heart, but the heart is the main organ of it. Okay. So the main function of the circulatory system is it's a highway system. Okay. It transports all the nutrients that get absorbed from the digestive system and the oxygen that gets absorbed from the respiratory system, and then takes it to all the other cells in your body that need it. Okay. Your brain cells need oxygen. Your muscle cells need energy. They go everywhere. Okay. Has to get there somewhere. Okay. Once it delivers all the good stuff, it picks up some bad stuff. It picks up some waste, and then it brings it back to the heart to be dealt with, or the kidneys, or the lungs. We'll talk about that a little bit. Okay. So we've got different blood vessels, the highways for this system. Okay. Arteries, by definition, carry blood away from the heart. So anytime the heart pumps, the blood is going to go through arteries, and it travels to the rest of the body. Okay. Almost all of the arteries in our system are carrying oxygen-rich blood. The only exception is the pulmonary artery. Okay. That actually, it's still an artery because it's pumping away from the heart, but it actually pumps blood, oxygen-poor blood that it's collected from the body, pumps it over to the lungs, and that gas exchange that we talked about last section, that takes place. So the pulmonary artery takes oxygen-poor blood to the lungs, fills up with oxygen, and then it has to come back. Okay. Now arteries are thicker than veins. They're thicker walled. Both of them have smooth muscles in the walls, but the arteries are thicker because they're closer to the heart, and so they have to withstand a higher pressure. Okay. It's like if you imagine turning a hose on too high, you couldn't do it from your house, but the hose might rip. Okay. It's not going to withstand that pressure. So you got to have a nice sturdy hose. And so these arteries are nice and thick to withstand that. Okay. Veins are kind of the opposite. They carry blood to the heart. So by definition, all veins carry blood to the heart, and almost all of them carry deoxygenated blood. And they're always drawn blue just to signify that, but your blood never turns blue. Okay. It gets a little bit of a darker red when it doesn't have oxygen in it. When there's oxygen in it, it's bright red because of the iron involved. We'll talk about that more. But your blood never turns blue. Your veins might look bluish through your skin, but that's not the blood. Okay. Anyway, the exception to the deoxygenated blood is the pulmonary vein. So once the gas exchange in the lungs takes place, the oxygen comes in, the pulmonary vein sends that oxygen-rich blood back to the heart. Heart pumps it to the rest of the body through arteries. Okay. Well, these vessels have to get down to like the cell level. Okay. You've got muscle cells, you've got nerve cells, you've got organ cells, you've got all this stuff that needs to have these nutrients and oxygen delivered and waste picked up. And so this takes place with capillaries. Okay. And these are tiny, tiny, tiny. Sometimes they're only big enough for a single red blood cell to get through. The wall of the capillaries might only be a single cell thick. Okay. So these get down to tiny, tiny, tiny. This is the transition from arteries to veins. Okay. So the capillary bed, they call it, is where exchange takes place. There's a capillary bed in the lungs, the capillaries that run around the alveoli. The oxygen and the carbon dioxide is exchanged. Remember last chapter, we talked about the kidneys and the glomerulus and the nephrons and all that stuff. There's capillaries in there for that exchange. The small intestines where the nutrients are being absorbed, your small intestines are rich with capillaries so that absorption can take place. Okay. All right. This is a good organ right here. This is a heart. Here's a heart. Okay. It's about the size of your closed fist like this. And there's some really major blood vessels coming off of it. Okay. Our heart has 4 chambers, and they're separated from each other. Okay. Oops, one of my valves just fell out. These valves open and close to keep the backflow, to keep the blood from flowing backwards. Okay. So 4 separate chambers. Okay. We have 2 atria. They're on top. So here's 1, and 2, okay, the right atria and then the left atria. Atrium is singular, atria is plural. So the right atrium and the left atrium. And then below that, we've got 2 ventricles, okay? Here's 1 and 2, also a right one and a left one, okay? The atria, their job is to receive the blood. So as blood is getting pumped to the heart, it gets received by the atria, okay? The ventricles are the pumps, okay? Now I want you to notice something, and we're going to talk about the pathway of air in just a minute, but I want you to notice something. The left ventricle, and you can't see it because my picture's in the way. This is the left ventricle. It's thicker than the right ventricle because the right ventricle only has to pump blood to the lungs, and the lungs are right next door. So the muscle doesn't have to be very strong. The left ventricle, this guy, has to pump blood to the rest of your body. So it's a thicker muscle because it has to pump harder, okay? The right side is what is responsible for receiving deoxygenated blood from the body, and then it pumps it to the lungs, okay? So our circulatory system is known as a 2-loop system. That's the first loop, okay? The deoxygenated blood comes in, goes to the lungs, comes back, okay? The left side then receives that oxygenated blood and then pumps it to the rest of the body. That's the second loop. So the heart to the lungs is one loop, the heart to the body is the second loop, okay? And this is just another kind of diagram of that. First loop goes to the lungs, second loop goes to the bodies. The right side, here's the right side, deals with the deoxygenated blood. The left side deals with the oxygen-rich or the oxygenated blood, okay? All right, here it is. You're going to have to memorize this. This is the pathway of blood, absolutely 100%. Now, this is a loop. This is a cycle, okay? It continues on and on and on. I always start in the right atrium, though, when I teach this, okay? So here we are in the right atrium, okay? That's where the oxygen poor blood is coming back from the body, okay? From the right atrium, the blood gets pumped into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the blood goes out to either lung through the pulmonary arteries. Remember, arteries pump blood away from the heart. It's still blue because this is deoxygenated blood, okay? From the pulmonary artery, we get to the lungs. That's where the gas exchange takes place. Pick up oxygen. Now it has to come back, okay? So now the blood comes back through these pulmonary veins. Since it's pumping to the heart, it's a vein, but now they're red because it's oxygen rich, okay? The left atrium receives that blood. So from the pulmonary veins, the blood goes into the left atrium, then it goes down into the left ventricle, which is the big, see how thick this is? Okay, this is the thicker part of the muscle, and it's going to pump that blood to the rest of the body. It goes out kind of through the, like, this is the left ventricle here. It kind of pumps it up out of the back of the heart, to the back and the top of the heart, into this, what's known as the aortic arch, okay? And this is the biggest artery in your body. So from the left ventricle, the blood goes out here into the aorta, okay? A couple of these will take the blood up to your brain, and the rest goes down like to your arms. And then this actually branches down behind the body, and that goes down and splits down between your legs, okay? That's your descending aorta, okay? So left ventricle to the aorta, that's the biggest of the arteries. They get smaller into normal arteries. Arteries transition into capillaries. Capillaries transition back into bigger veins to bring the blood back. And then it comes into the heart from the top and the bottom, because you've got blood going all through your body and coming back from all over your body, through the vena cava. I spelled that wrong. That's supposed to be an A. Probably autocorrect. The vena cava is the largest vein in the body. And look, we're right back into the right atrium again. And this happens all the time, your entire life, because when your heart stops pumping, that means you're no longer alive, okay? So every time your heart beats, that's pumping blood to your lungs and to the rest of your body, okay? Now we can feel that with our pulse. Whenever the heart beats, the blood rushes through the arteries, and the arteries actually swell a little bit. So if you hold your fingers kind of in the crook of your neck a little bit and you hold still and you don't talk, You could probably feel your pulse. You can feel one easily on your wrist as well. You shouldn't take your pulse with your thumb though, because you might actually pick up a pulse inside of your thumb, okay? That pulse matches your heart rate. The more activity you have, the higher the heart rate and the higher the pulse will go, okay? Blood pressure, if you've ever gone to a physical, ever gone to the doctor's office, they'll put that blood pressure cuff on your arm and they'll pump it up and it might squeeze really hard. What they're measuring is how hard your heart is beating, how much pressure the blood is leaving your heart from. And there's a normal healthy range for that to happen, because if you have high blood pressure, it actually brings on a lot of health risks, okay? Most kids don't have high blood pressure. That's something that happens in adults and older people. But if you have high blood pressure, your heart could actually wear out faster. And stroke is a really big risk of high blood pressure. You've got a whole bunch of blood vessels in your brain, little tiny blood vessels. And so if your heart is pumping too hard and it's sending out too much pressure, it could actually rupture some of the blood vessels in your brain. And that's what a stroke is, okay? When the blood gets out in your brain, it's a big problem. Because if the blood vessel ruptures, that means the blood's not going where it needs to go, okay? And then finally, this big, huge, long word, sphygmomanometer. This measures your blood pressure, okay? And that's the cuff that goes on your arm. Whew, I think that's all. Hey, no, that's all. Bye.